The crystalline waters of the Mexican Caribbean conceal more than coral reefs and tropical fish. On May 3, 2025 at 2:47 p.m., the sonar of the tourist submarine Kaak Nohoch detects something impossible 47 meters deep off the eastern coast of Cozumel. These are not natural rock formations, they are not the remains of a modern shipwreck. They are massive architectural structures. Perfectly aligned columns that defy all rational explanation. Captain Carlos Menendez cuts the engines. Through the submarine's reinforced glass, 12 American tourists gaze in absolute silence at what no human has seen in over 1,000 years. The intact remains of a submerged Mayan city, complete with temples, ceremonial plazas, and, most disturbingly, a colossal sculpture with human features and jaguar fangs that seems to guard the main entrance. While on the surface, cruise ships unload thousands of tourists in search of a perfect Caribbean paradise, less than 50 meters beneath their feet lies the definitive proof that the darkest Mayan legends were not myths. The ancient codices spoke of Itzamkanak, the forbidden city of the moon goddess Ixchel, swallowed by the sea as divine punishment. Modern archaeologists had dismissed it as pure fantasy, a religious allegory with no historical basis. But there it was, preserved by the salt waters of the Caribbean, its secrets intact, its mysteries waiting to be revealed. This is the story of the finding that could rewrite Mayan history. A discovery that would confirm the most unsettling prophecies of lost cities, forbidden rituals, and the true reason an entire civilization chose to erase the existence of this sacred place from its records. To ensure you don't miss further developments in cases like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Let us know in the comments which country you're watching from. Here, we are not speaking of victims in the traditional sense, but of an entire civilization that vanished beneath the waves over a millennium ago. Itzamkanak was not just another city in the late classic Mayan world, it was the spiritual heart dedicated to Ixchel, the goddess of the moon, medicine, and childbirth, ruled by the enigmatic Ajal-Kinich Yanaab Pakal III, whose name appears on stelae found in Palenque, but whose capital city had never been located. Dr. Mariana Shiyu, a 43-year-old field archaeologist specializing in Mesoamerican symbology, has been obsessed with this mystery her entire life. Born in Mérida, Yucatán, she grew up listening to the stories her Mayan grandmother told her about the lost city, where women ruled and jaguars walked among humans. Around her neck, always visible, hangs a small jade amulet bearing the glyph of Kukulkan, a gift from her mentor, Dr. Alberto Ruz Luillier, grandson of the man who discovered Pakal's tomb in Palenque. Mariana never accepted that Itzamkanak was just a legend. While we were all searching in the jungle, recalls her colleague, Dr. James Richardson of the University of Texas, she insisted on looking to the sea. She used to say the Maya understood the cycles of the tides better than we do, that if a city disappeared, it wasn't swallowed by vegetation, but by something far more catastrophic. The people of Itzamkanak were unique in the Mayan world. Fragmented records speak of a matriarchal society where the priestesses of Ixchel held supreme power. Ajal-Kinich Yanaab Pakal III ruled, yes, but under the spiritual guidance of the great priestess Itza, whose true name was erased from the codices for reasons we are only now beginning to understand. They practiced complex astronomical rituals, aligning their constructions not only with the sun and moon, but with Venus, the planet the Maya associated with war and rebirth. The architecture of Itzamkanak, according to the newly discovered mural fragments, combined elements never before seen together. Masks of Chayak, the rain god, alternated with representations of Ixchel in her most fearsome form, the crone of destruction, with jaguar claws and a skirt of serpents. The main buildings were coated in stucco painted with Maya blue, that impossible, unreproducible color only they knew how to create, mixed with seashell dust and sacrificial blood. We found remains of obsidian workshops, Dr. Shiyu explained during the first official dive to the site. But not just any obsidian. This came from El Chayal in Guatemala, over 1,000 kilometers away. Itzamkanak was a center of economic and spiritual power that rivaled Tikal and Calakmul. The personal objects recovered speak of lives interrupted. Half-finished jade necklaces, polychrome vessels with traces of sacred cacao, flutes made from human bone used in rituals we prefer not to imagine. Each artifact tells the story of real people, artisans, priests, warriors, mothers, and children, who one day ceased to exist, swallowed by a cataclysm the Mayan codices described as the day Ixchel wept blood and the sea reclaimed her temple. Dr. Shiyu's obsession with finding Itzamkanak was not merely academic. Her great-grandmother, a Jimen, a Mayan healer, had passed down ancient chants that spoke of the city beneath the waters where souls await the return of the fifth sun. Mariana grew up knowing these were not simple legends, but ancestral memories encoded in metaphors that only now, with the submarine's discovery, take on a terrifying meaning. April 18th, 912 AD, the last dawn. The sun rises over the Caribbean Sea at precisely 5:47 a.m., according to modern astronomical calculations adjusted to the Mayan calendar. In Itzamkanak, the great priestess Itza has already been awake for 3 hours, preparing the ritual of the Wayab, the 5 unlucky days that mark the end of the Mayan year. The sacred conch shells sound from the top of the Temple of the Tides, a unique pyramidal structure that we now know was designed to amplify the sound of the waves. From his palace, Aja Kinich Janab Pakal III watches the procession snaking through the Grand Plaza. More than 20,000 inhabitants have gathered for the ceremony. Merchants have arrived from Skaret and Tulum, bringing jade, quetzal feathers, and most importantly, the victims for the sacrifice, 32 prisoners of war from the rival city of Koba. Midday, the first signs. At 12:17 p.m., according to inscriptions on Stela 9 recovered from the site, the first omen occurs. A flock of dead pelicans falls from the sky onto the temple of Ixchel. The augurs consult the sacred bones, but the signs are confusing. The earth trembles slightly, not unusual for the region, but this time the tremor is accompanied by a low rumble like the roar of a celestial jaguar from the depths of the city's sacred cenote. The Chilam Balam, the jaguar prophet of Itzamkanak, whose real name was Itzamnakawil, declares that the gods are hungry. He orders the sacrifices doubled. The blood must flow more abundantly than ever to appease the divine wrath. Partially preserved murals depict the scene. Priests in bat masks, extracting hearts while the sky darkens with clouds that have no place in the middle of the dry season. 3:00 p.m. The desperate ritual. The great priestess Itza, dressed in her ceremonial attire of fish scales and crowned with a representation of the waning moon, begins the supreme ritual. It is something that has not been done in 300 years. The direct invocation of Ixchel in her destructive aspect. Later codices found in Mayapan mention this ritual with horror, calling it the day the mouth of the underworld was opened. 32 hearts are offered in exactly 32 minutes. The blood runs through channels specially designed in the temple, forming the glyph for moving water. The partially intact mural, showing a winged serpent swallowing the sun, was painted, according to carbon-14 analysis in these final hours, a last desperate attempt to document what was happening. 5:30 p.m., the moment of collapse. Modern seismographs analyzing the sedimentary layers confirm that at 5:30 p.m., an earthquake of magnitude 8.2 on the Richter scale occurred. But it was no ordinary earthquake. Geological records show a catastrophic vertical displacement of the continental shelf, a phenomenon geologists call a graben collapse, where an entire section of land simply sinks. Survivors, and we know there were some thanks to references in the codices of other cities, described the event as the day the sea swallowed the sun. The water surged from the east, a liquid wall 15 meters high that first struck the Temple of the Tides. The structure, its foundations deeper and more solid than any other Mayan construction of the era, withstood the initial impact, but the city was already doomed. Within minutes, the waters covered the main plaza. The final moments are etched into the bones. Skeletons were found in positions indicating desperate attempts to escape, mothers embracing their children, priests clinging to sacred idols. One warrior, identified by his jaguar headdress, died holding a stela with a hastily carved inscription. Ixchel has claimed us. Let no one seek the cursed city. The Mayan rulers of other cities made an unprecedented decision: to erase Itzamkanak from history. Codices were rewritten stelae that mentioned the city were destroyed or buried. In Copan, Tikil, and Palenque, evidence has been found of a systematic purge of any reference to the lost city. The name of Ajao Kinich Yanab Pakal III was struck from royal genealogies. The great priestess Itza became a forbidden name, mentioned only in whispers as she who invoked the wrath of the sea. Why go to such lengths to erase a natural tragedy? The discovered murals suggest something far more disturbing. The rituals performed that day were not meant to avert the disaster but to cause it. The elite of Itzamkanak believed that by sacrificing their city, they would prevent a greater cataclysm that would destroy the entire Mayan civilization. And perhaps, just perhaps, they were right. The classic Maya collapse occurred barely 2 generations later. What we have found are not just ruins, explains Dr. Eduardo Matos Moctezuma, archaeologist emeritus of the INE. It is a time capsule from the final moments of a civilization that chose its own destruction. Every object, every inscription, every bone tells us this was not an accident. It was a calculated sacrifice, and now, 1100 years later, we can finally ask, a sacrifice for what? The search for Itzamkanak did not begin in 2025. For decades, well-funded expeditions and brilliant academics tried to locate the lost city, only to find frustration, discarded theories, and, in some cases, inexplicable tragedy. 1964, the Hammond Expedition. Dr. Charles Hammond of Harvard University led the first systematic search for Itzamkanak based on cross-referenced Mayan codices. With a team of 15 archaeologists and support from the National Geographic Society, Hammond was convinced the city lay somewhere in the jungle of Quintana Roo. For 6 months, the team explored every cenote, every mound that might hide a pyramid. Hammond made the classic mistake, Dr. Shiyu explains, reviewing the archives. He looked where everyone expected to find a Mayan city, in the jungle. He completely ignored the references in the Chilam Balam of Chumayel that spoke of the city where fish swim among the temples. He interpreted it as a metaphor, not a literal description. On November 14, 1964, Hammond wrote in his journal, "The local guides refuse to take us further east. They speak of curses, of places where one must not tread. Superstitions that hinder science." 3 days later, 2 members of his team vanished in a cenote. Their bodies were never recovered. 1987, the Inahunam Project. Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History, along with the National Autonomous University of Mexico, launched the most ambitious project to date. Using the first satellite images available for civilian use, they identified anomalies off the coast of Cozumel that could indicate submerged structures. Dr. Roman Piña-Chan, the project director, was certain he had found photographic evidence. However, the official report, hastily filed in December 1987, concluded, "The observed formations correspond to coral reefs and natural geological structures. There is no evidence of human construction." What the report failed to mention, and what only came to light with the 2025 discovery, was that the original images clearly showed artificial geometric shapes. Someone at some level of the government decided the world was not ready for this discovery. "I found the original photographs in 2019, confesses Dr. Luis Alberto Martos Lopez, a former INAH collaborator. "They were unequivocal. You could see pyramids, plazas, causeways, but the negatives were altered. The final images manipulated. When I asked, I was told it was a matter of national security. National security for some Mayan ruins?" 1999. The tragedy of the French team. The most promising expedition, and the one that came closest to finding Itzamkanak, was led by Dr. Jacques Cousteau Jr., son of the famous oceanographer. Using side-scan sonar technology and a team of divers specializing in underwater archaeology, Cousteau Jr. systematically explored the waters around Cozumel. On July 7, 1999, the sonar detected what appeared to be artificial structures at a depth of 45 meters. The ship's logs, recovered years later, show the exact coordinates: 20°25, 14N, 86°24, 28°W, precisely where the 2025 submarine would make its discovery. But something went terribly wrong. "We lost contact with the divers at 2:23 p.m., recalled the ship's captain, Michel Dubois, in a little-known interview for a French diving magazine. "The water became strange and inexplicably murky. The instruments went haywire. When the divers surfaced, one of them, Pascal Mercier, was in a state of shock. He kept repeating, 'The stone eyes are watching us. We must not disturb the guardians.'" The expedition was immediately cancelled, officially due to adverse weather conditions. Unofficially, 3 team members were hospitalized with symptoms of severe decompression sickness, despite having followed all protocols. Pascal Mercier never dived again and spent the rest of his life in a psychiatric institute in Marseille. The ignored archives. The most frustrating part of the case is that the clues were always there, in the archives of INAI, of Docotra. Dr. Ho Chu found 3 key documents that were systematically ignored. The Sotuta manuscript, 1923. A late colonial codex that precisely described the coordinates of Itzamkanak using astronomical references. It was catalogued as religious fantasy with no historical value. Father Landa's testimony, 1562. A page torn out and later reinserted into his Relación de las Cosas de Yucatán described a city swallowed by the waters as punishment for invoking sea demons. The page was declared apocryphal in 1978 without any scientific analysis. The Xicalango map, 1811. Drawn by an elderly Mayan fisherman, it clearly showed underwater structures off the coast of Cozumel. It was archived as folk art in 1965. The academic blindness was deliberate, Dr. Chu asserts with evident frustration. Every time someone got too close to the truth, rational explanations would appear, research funds would be cut, careers would be ruined. It's as if something or someone did not want Itzamkanak to be found, at least not until now. What do you think really happened? Did the archaeologists ignore obvious signs? Leave your theory in the comments as we continue with the years of silence that followed. And if this story is impacting you, hit the like button so more people can learn about this case. After 1,123 years of a silence as deep as the grave, the legend of Itzamkanak survived not in the great academic centers, but in the Mayan communities of Cozumel. It lived on in the songs of fishermen, in the recurring dreams of the J-men, the traditional healers who never stopped warning about the place where one must not fish when the moon is full. In Mexican primary school textbooks, Itzamkanak appeared as a mere footnote, a mythical city mentioned in some codices, likely an allegory for the Mayan underworld. Teachers mentioned it alongside Atlantis and El Dorado, lost cities that existed only in the collective imagination. But there were those who knew the truth, or at least sensed it. The guardians of memory. Don Bernardino Zen, an 89-year-old fisherman born in Cozumel, never forgot the stories his grandfather told him as they mended their nets. My grandfather would tell me, "Bernardino, when you see the water turn dark blue for no reason, when the fish flee in circles, do not cast your nets. The ancient ones are down below, and they do not like to be disturbed." In 1998, Don Bernardino tried to guide some American archaeologists to the site, but his boat suffered an inexplicable breakdown right over the coordinates. The engine serviced that very morning simply died. Maria Canul, a visual artist from San Miguel de Cozumel, spent 15 years obsessively painting the same scene, an underwater city with a gigantic jaguar sculpture guarding its entrance. "I don't know where these images come from," she confessed at a 2018 exhibition. "I've dreamed of it since I was a child. Always the same temple, always the same circular plaza, always this feeling that something terrible and sacred happened there." Her paintings, now in retrospect, are hauntingly accurate depictions of what the submarine would find in 2025. June 24th, 2003. The censored documentary. Independent filmmaker Carlos Montemayor had achieved the impossible. Funding from the National Council for Culture and the Arts to produce Itzamkanak, The Forbidden City, a documentary that would combine oral histories, codex analysis, and underwater exploration. For 8 months, Montemayor and his team gathered compelling evidence. They interviewed 37 Mayan elders, all with consistent stories about the city's location. They hired professional divers who, though they didn't find the main ruins, did recover fragments of Mayan pottery at depths where they shouldn't exist. The centerpiece of the documentary was a ceremonial mask of black obsidian, found by a fisherman in 2001 and sold to a private collector. Montemayor tracked it to an auction house in Mexico City. The mask, dated via thermoluminescence to 900 AD, showed unique features. Jade inlays forming the glyph of the goddess Ixchel, and most disturbingly, crystallized sea salt residue on its interior, suggesting it had been submerged for centuries. The documentary was scheduled to premiere at the Guanajuato International Film Festival. It never made it. 2 days before the premiere, the production house suffered a fire that destroyed all physical copies. The hard drives with the digital files were accidentally formatted. Montemayor was hit with a fraud lawsuit by the mask's collector, who suddenly claimed it was a forgery. The filmmaker spent 3 years in legal battles that bankrupted him. The mask vanished. It was officially catalogued in 2009 as a modern reproduction of no archaeological value. Someone very powerful did not want that documentary to see the light of day, Montemayor says today, visibly shaken by the memories. It wasn't just bad luck. It was a coordinated operation to silence the truth. The question is, why? What is in Itzamkanak that justifies such a level of cover-up? The frustrated academic attempts. Patricia Ochoa Castillo, a researcher at the INA Yucatán Center, tried in 2011 to organize an international symposium on lost Mayan cities, myth and reality. Itzamkanak was to be the main topic. She invited the world's leading experts in Mayan civilization. 3 weeks before the event, her budget was cut without explanation. The international speakers received mysterious cancellations of their visas. The symposium went ahead but reduced to a small round table on symbolic interpretations in Mayan mythology. In 2015, Dr. Nikolai Grube, an epigrapher from the University of Bonn, deciphered a series of glyphs at Palenque that made direct reference to the sister city beneath the waters. His paper was rejected by every major academic journal. The official reason: insufficient evidence and speculative conclusions. The real reason, as an editor confessed to him off the record, was orders from above: do not publish anything about Itzamkanak. Folklore as resistance. While academia and official media silenced the topic, popular culture kept the memory alive. Son Jarocho groups from Veracruz sang about the city the sea took away. Artisans in Cozumel sold clay figurines they claimed represented the guardians of the sunken temple. Every full moon, discreetly, some fishermen still cast white flowers at a specific spot in the sea. So the ancient ones know we have not forgotten them. In 2020, during the pandemic, a curious phenomenon emerged on TikTok. Young Mayans began sharing recurring dreams about an underwater city. The hashtags Taut Itzamkanak and #Lost Mayan City amassed millions of views before being mysteriously suppressed from trending topics. The most viral videos were deleted for violating community standards, though no one could explain exactly which standard they violated. May 3, 2025, 1:45 p.m. The Kaak Nohoch, Mayan for Great Fire, is not a research submarine. It's a tourist attraction operated by Cozumel Underwater Adventures, designed to show visitors the coral reefs without them needing to dive. Its captain, Carlos Menendez, 52, a former Mexican Navy sailor turned tour guide, knows every rock formation, every school of fish, within a 20-kilometer radius of Cozumel. That particular afternoon, he was taking a group of 12 tourists from Minnesota celebrating the Pattersons' golden wedding anniversary. The plan was simple: descend to 40 meters, show them the Palancar Reef, maybe spot some turtles, and return to port for cocktail hour. The sea was unusually calm, the visibility perfect. Ideal conditions that ironically would allow for the discovery that would change history. We were 15 minutes into the dive when my sonar picked up something strange, Menendez recalls. It wasn't the seabed I knew. There were structures where there should only be sand. My first thought was that someone had illegally sunk a ship to create an artificial reef. But the signal was too big, too regular. Menendez made a decision that technically violated his company's safety protocols. He diverted the submarine from its established tourist route. The Pattersons and the other tourists didn't complain. In fact, Mrs. Patterson was the first to notice something extraordinary through the port-side window. "Look, is that a pyramid?" What they found was older and more disturbing than anyone could imagine. Through the crystal-clear Caribbean water, illuminated by the submarine's powerful LED spotlights, Cyclopean columns at least 3 meters in diameter were revealed. Perfectly cylindrical, covered in coral, but unmistakably artificial. Beyond them, the unmistakable shape of a pyramidal structure, its truncated top characteristic of Mayan architecture, but on a scale that defied everything known. Margaret Patterson, a retired history teacher, was the one who verbalized what everyone was thinking. "My God," she whispered, "this is like Atlantis, but real." Her husband, a stoic Vietnam veteran, had tears in his eyes as he recorded everything with his iPhone through the submarine's thick glass. Menendez held the submarine stationary for exactly 18 minutes, the maximum he could justify without risking emergency oxygen levels. In that time, the submarine's security cameras designed to record any incidents with marine life captured 4.7 gigabytes of high-definition video. Video that would show, upon later analysis, at least 7 major structures. 3 pyramids, what appeared to be a palace, a ceremonial plaza, and 2 elongated buildings that experts would identify as possible astronomical observatories. But it was the last image, captured just before Menendez began the ascent, that would chill the blood of archaeologists. A monumental sculpture, at least 8 meters high, half human, half jaguar, its jaws open in an eternal roar, holding in its claws what looked like a petrified human heart. The tourists, oblivious to the significance of what they were seeing, applauded, thinking it was part of the show. The broken protocol. Menendez knew he had to report the find to the port authorities immediately. The protocol is clear. Any archaeological discovery must be reported to INAH within 24 hours. But Menendez had served in the Navy. He knew how bureaucracy worked. He also knew that the Pattersons had paid extra for the premium tour, which included copies of all the video from the trip. I made a decision that could have cost me my license, Menendez admits. I gave each tourist a copy of the video before they disembarked. I told them it was a special anniversary gift. In reality, I was making sure there were 12 copies of the evidence on 12 different phones before anyone could make it disappear. At 4:47 p.m., John Patterson uploaded the first video to Facebook with the caption, "You won't believe what we found in Mexico." In 30 minutes, the video had 1,000 shares. In an hour, 20,000. By the time INA tried to contain the information, it was too late. The entire world had seen Itzamkanak, the immediate response. In less than 72 hours after the Pattersons' viral video, Cozumel became the center of the archaeological world. The Mexican government, through INAH and the Secretariat of the Navy, established a 5-kilometer exclusion zone around the site. Dr. Mariana Su was appointed director of the Itzamkanak Underwater Archaeological Rescue Project, PRAISI, finally fulfilling her decades-long dream. The first challenge was technological. At 47 meters deep, conventional diving is dangerous and time-limited. State-of-the-art technology was needed. The solution came from an unprecedented collaboration. The Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution loaned its remotely operated vehicle, ROV Jason, capable of transmitting real-time 4K video and collecting samples with millimeter precision. The University of Oxford sent its submarine LiDAR scanning team using technology never before applied to a submerged Mayan site of this magnitude. LiDAR scan the complete city revealed. On May 15, 2025, the first results from the submarine LiDAR left everyone breathless. Itzamkanak wasn't just a collection of temples. It was a complete metropolis of approximately 4.2 square kilometers. The scan revealed 47 main structures, including 5 pyramids of varying sizes. A network of causeways, or seabed, perfectly preserved under the sand, a system of artificial canals suggesting advanced hydraulic engineering. More than 200 residential structures, and 3 artificial cenotes, now part of the seabed. It's larger than Chichen Itza, declared Dr. Takeshi Inamata of the University of Arizona, an expert in Mayan urbanism, and it's better preserved. The salt water, against all logic, had acted as a perfect preservative. Carbon and marine isotope dating. Organic samples recovered by the ROV Jason were sent to 3 independent laboratories for dating: the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California, the Berkeley Geochronology Center, and the Radiocarbon Laboratory at UNAM. The results were consistent and astonishing. Wood from the main temple beams, 890 to 920 AD. Human skeletal remains, 905 to 915 AD. Charcoal from ceremonial braziers, last burned in 912 AD, plus to 5 years. But it was the analysis of strontium isotopes in the teeth of the human remains that provided the most shocking revelation. Isotope analysis told a startling story. At least 30% of the population was not native to the coast. They had come from the interior, from places as distant as Tikal and Kopian. Itzamkanak was a truly cosmopolitan city, a center of pilgrimage that drew Maya from across Mesoamerica. The titans of technology, Microsoft and Google, vied to collaborate on the project, but it was the team from IBM Watson that won the bid. Using artificial intelligence trained on thousands of known Mayan sites, Watson analyzed every pixel of video, every point of LiDAR data, creating a photorealistic digital reconstruction of Itzamkanak in its prime. The reconstruction revealed extraordinary details. The buildings were painted in Mayan blue, cinnabar red, and ochre yellow, forming patterns that depicted the Mayan cosmos. The main plaza was designed as a giant solar calendar, with markers indicating equinoxes and solstices. The royal palace housed an astronomical observatory, its windows precisely aligned with the rising of Venus. But it was the silent stone that held the most confounding secrets. The epigraphist Dr. David Stewart, renowned for deciphering the Mayan calendar, was summoned to analyze the inscriptions. What he found left him perplexed. "There are glyphs here," he reported, "that appear at no other Mayan site. It's as if Itzamkanak developed its own, more complex, more evolved variant of writing." One of these unique glyphs, dubbed the Cataclysm glyph, appeared 47 times across different inscriptions. It combined elements of water, death, and rebirth in a configuration never seen before. Its tentative translation was chilling: "the sacrifice that saves the worlds." The stones spoke of a strange history. The bones, however, sang an even stranger song. Geneticist Svante Pääbo, a Nobel laureate for his work on ancient DNA, flew in personally from Leipzig to oversee the extraction. The results confirmed the remains were Mayan, but with peculiarities. The mitochondrial haplogroup showed a unique variant, suggesting a degree of genetic isolation. Yet, there was evidence of non-Mesoamerican ancestry in at least 5 individuals. One, found in the main temple adorned with jade, had genetic markers directly linking him to the royalty of Palenque. "It's as if Itzamkanak was a genetic and cultural experiment," Pääbo explained. "A city where royal lineages from across the Mayan world mingled, creating something new, something perhaps that was too dangerous to be allowed to continue." The case didn't end on the day they disappeared, but when their city emerged from the Caribbean shadows, bringing with it questions we perhaps should never have asked. On June 3, 2025, the ROV. Jason made the discovery that would change everything. Inside what appeared to be a sealed chamber in the Temple of the Tides, it found the impossible: a preserved Mayan codex. It should not have survived a millennium underwater, but it was encased in multiple layers of stone wrapped in a material treated with jaguar bile and an unknown resin, all within a hermetically sealed jade container. The codex, 23 pages of amate bark paper, was intact. Dr. Shu wept when she saw the first images. "They knew the city would be destroyed," she whispered, "and they wanted the future to know why." What you are about to discover is more disturbing than you can imagine. If you think you can handle it, continue watching, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. The Codex, named the Itzamkanak Codex or the Codex of the Final Sacrifice, was translated in record time by an international team. The truth was more disturbing than any theory. The document was not just a historical record. It was a confession, a warning, and perhaps a prophecy. According to the Codex, Itzamkanak was not just a city dedicated to the goddess Ixchel. It was a portal, a nexus between the world of the living and Xibalba, the Mayan underworld. The city's priests had perfected rituals that allowed them to communicate with entities the Codex calls the First Ones, beings that existed before the creation of the fifth sun, before the gods fashioned current humanity. The high priestess Itza, whose true name, the Codex reveals, was Ixcoatl, Lady of the Night Sky, had made a pact. In exchange for forbidden knowledge, the mathematics of the cosmos, the secret of life after death, the location of other civilizations beyond the sea. The First Ones demanded sacrifices. Not ordinary sacrifices of blood, but something far deeper. Entire souls, human consciousnesses that would be stored in the depths of the sea. Dr. Stewart, reading the translation, turned pale. "This isn't mythology," he stated. "The way they describe these processes is almost scientific. They speak of vital essence transfer, of obsidian containers that preserve the Ix, the Mayan term for consciousness or spirit." The Codex revealed something even more unsettling. Itzamkanak was not unique. It was part of a network of 7 cities, all built on specific points on the planet. The Codex calls the knots of time. The other 6 cities had also been sacrificed, deliberately submerged on specific dates corresponding to precise planetary conjunctions. The names of these lost cities resonated with legends from around the world. Mu'ul-Ha, possibly in the Pacific, Sakya in the Mediterranean Sea, Kinich Atlantic in the Atlantic Ocean, Itzamkab in the Indian Ocean, Volompetan in the South China Sea, and Oxlajun Baktun in Antarctica. "If this is true," said Dr. Patricia Ledesma of the UNAM Institute of Geophysics, "we are looking at a global pre-Columbian civilization. Or at the very least, a shared knowledge that transcends everything we thought possible." The Codex described in chilling detail what truly happened on that fatal day, April 18th, 9-12. It was not a natural disaster exploited for a ritual. It was a ritual designed to cause the disaster. The 32 sacrifices were not random victims. Each represented an aspect of the Mayan cosmos, and their death in a specific sequence created what the Codex calls a tear in the fabric of the world. The spilled blood was not an offering to the gods, but a dimensional lubricant that would allow the First Ones to briefly cross into our world. The sinking of the city was not divine punishment, but the agreed-upon the city and all its inhabitants would be taken to the other side of the water, a euphemism for a form of existence the Codex suggests but never fully explains. The humanoid jaguar sculptures found at the site were not merely decorative. The Codex calls them the Balamob, the jaguar men, and claims they are containers. Each statue houses the consciousness of a warrior priest who voluntarily fused his essence with the stone to eternally guard the portal. Magnetic resonance analysis of the statues revealed inexplicable anomalies. Internal cavities that should not exist, filled with a material that matches no known compound. When the team tried to take a sample, every drill bit broke. The material, whatever it is harder than industrial diamond, explained Dr. Roberto Santos, a materials specialist from MIT. It's as if the statues are alive, isn't the right word. Let's just say they exhibit properties that defy our understanding of inorganic matter. There are energy patterns, thermal fluctuations, that make no sense. The codex ended with a series of prophecies, some seemingly already fulfilled. When the eagle and the condor fly together, the union of North and South America, the children of the corn will forget their tongue, the loss of indigenous languages, liquid fire will move the world, petroleum, voices will travel without bodies, and the internet. But the final prophecies are the ones that send shivers down the spine. In the year of Kukulkan's return, 2025 by some calculations, the first city will emerge. The guardians will awaken when the living find those who wait. The sacrifice will be remembered and the pact will be reclaimed. 7 cities, 7 seals, 7 worlds converge. As the team in Cozumel processed these revelations, unsettling reports began to trickle in from around the globe. Fishermen in Japan reported underwater structures that weren't there before. Satellite images showed anomalies in the Mediterranean, near Santorini. A Russian research submarine detected artificial formations beneath the Antarctic ice. Was it possible that the discovery of Itzamkanak had activated something? Or had they always been there waiting to be found at the right moment? Dr. Shu, at a tense press conference on June 15, 2025, stated, "We are not just facing an archaeological discovery. We are facing evidence that human history as we know it is just a fragment of something much larger and much stranger." Itzamkanak is not the end of a mystery. It is the beginning of questions we may not be prepared to answer. There were no criminals to bring to justice, but the discovery of Itzamkanak brought a different kind of justice. The historical vindication of centuries of ignored indigenous knowledge. On July 21, 2025, the President of Mexico, accompanied by representatives of the Mayan communities, signed a decree establishing the Submarine Archaeological Sanctuary of Itzamkanak. For the first time in modern history, the direct descendants of the Maya would have administrative control over a major archaeological site. A council of Mayan elders, not a government agency, would decide how and when the city would be explored. Don Bernardino Zen, the fisherman who always knew where the city lay, was named honorary guardian of the submerged heritage. At the ceremony, with tears in his 89-year-old eyes, he said, "My grandfather told me the day would come when the world would be ready for the truth. That day is today, but the full truth, that may take another 1,000 years to understand." UNESCO fast-tracked Itzamkanak's designation as a World Heritage Site, but with unprecedented conditions. Only researchers approved by the Mayan Council could descend. Tourists could visit an observation zone via specially designed submersibles but would never touch the ruins. The stone jaguar men would remain undisturbed, out of respect and, as some officials privately admitted, out of caution. Cozumel would never be the same. The island, once known for its paradise beaches, transformed into the global center for underwater archaeology. Scientists, mystics, and truth-seekers arrived. But something else arrived too: respect. For the first time, traditional Mayan knowledge was seen not as superstition, but as coded history. As 2025 drew to a close, more questions remained than answers. Who or what were the first ones? Why the sacrifice of 7 cities? What does it mean that the pact will be reclaimed? The stone jaguar men kept their eternal vigil, and some divers swore their obsidian eyes followed them in the deep. Dr. Shu established her permanent office in Cozumel, dedicating the rest of her life to its mysteries. In her final journal entry, she wrote, "We found the city, but the city also found us." I don't know if we are excavating the past or unearthing the future. If you made it this far, it's because this story has touched something deep within you. Subscribe to the channel and activate all notifications so you don't miss the next case. Comment on what mystery you'd like me to investigate next. Do you know of an unexplained finding in your country? Let me know in the comments. Give this video a like if you want more stories like this and share it with someone who appreciates well-researched true crime. I'll see you in the next case.